unknown 13th god. The unknown god, or Agnostos Theos, is a theory by Eduard Norden, first published in 1913, that he proposes based on the Christian Apostle Paul's Areopagus speech in Acts 17:23. He proposes that in addition to the 12 main gods and the innumerable lesser deities, the ancient Greeks worshipped a deity they called Agnostos Theos, that is, unknown god, which Norden called un-Greek. In Athens there was a temple specifically dedicated to that god, and very often Athenians would swear in the name of the unknown god. Apollodorus, Philostratus and Pausanias also wrote about the unknown god. According to the Book of Acts, contained in the New Christian Testament, when the Apostle Paul visited Athens, he saw an altar with an inscription dedicated to that god, possibly connected to the Cylonian affair. And when invited to speak to the Athenian elite at the Areopagus, he gave the following speech. Acts 17:22-31. Paul stood in the middle of the Areopagus and said, "You men of Athens, I perceive that you are very religious in all things, for as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found also an altar with an inscription to an unknown god. Whatever therefore you worship in ignorance, this I announce to you. The God who made the world and all things in it, he, being the Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in the temples made with hands. Neither is he served by man's hands, as though he needed everything. Seeing he himself gives to life and breath all things. He made from one blood every nation of man to dwell on all the surface of the earth, having determined appointed seasons and the boundaries of their dwellings, that they should seek the Lord, if perhaps they might reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being, as some of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring, being then the offspring of God. We ought not to think that the divine nature is like gold or silver or stone, engraved by art and design of man. The times of ignorance, therefore, God overlooked, but now he commands that all the people everywhere should repent, because he has appointed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness, by the man he has ordained, of which he has given assurance to all men, in that he has raised him from the dead. Depending on context, that sounds a little dark, doesn't it? Because the Jewish god could not be named, it is possible that Paul's Athenian listeners would have considered his god to be the unknown god par excellence. His listeners may have understood a new introduction of an unknown god. I wonder who that could be. Possibly by allusions to Aeschylus, the Innumerades. The irony would have been that just as the Innumerades were not new gods at all, but the Furies in a new form, so was the Christian god not a new god, but rather that god of the Greeks, who was already worshipped as the unknown god. There is an altar dedicated to the unknown god found in 1820 on the Palatine Hill of Rome. It contains an inscription in Latin which says, either for a god or sacred goddess. Caius Sextius Calvinus, son of Gaius, praetor, by the order of the Senate, restored this. The altar is currently exhibited in the Palatine Museum. Oddly enough, my middle name is Guy, and this would be the original spelling. I also found a hymn to the unknown god. It is Peruvian, but everything is clearly connected, and is as follows. O ruler, lord of the universe, whether thou art male, whether thou art female, lord of reproduction, wherever thou mayest be, O lord of divination, where art thou? Thou mayest be above, thou mayest be below, or perhaps around thy splendid throne and scepter. O hear me from the sky above, in which thou mayest be, from beneath the sea, in which thou mayest be, creator of the world, maker of all men, Lord of all lords. My eyes fail me for longing to see thee, for the soul desires to know thee. O look down upon me, for thou knowest me, the sun, the moon, the day, the night, spring, winter, are not ordained in vain by thee, O deity. They all travel to the assigned place. They all arrive at their destined ends, whithersoever thou pleasest. Thy royal scepter thou holdest. O hear me, O choose me. Let it not be that I should tire, that I should die. I know exactly who this unknown god is. I remind you of the title of Philip II, the father of Alexander the Great. Philip was known as the 13th god, and the god they worshipped was Zeus. Please hit that notification bell to ensure that you are notified of each upload. Share, like, comment and subscribe to support the channel for more ancient mystery.